Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Close Show. Welcome to, of course, the period of time where we're talking about risk off today. So things have changed a little bit. We've got still crypto doing pretty well, thanks to everybody feeling that, well, we know that obviously the rubles are flowing into the crypto market and that is causing it to be up. But at the same time, we've got the usual show of resistance here coming through for the Nasdaq, coming through for the S&P 500, and most of the stocks. And pretty much everything is, well, not everything is down, but certainly some stocks are starting to take a little bit of a tumble, a little bit of hyper stocks down. Some of the things that have done well in the last couple of days. Seems to always be an attack on ARK, doesn't it? Down 3%. In fact, why is that even down so much? Which is the stock that's taking ARK today, everybody? It's not Tesla. I don't know which one it is. Nvidia down 4%. Oh, SE down 13.81%. Not good. So that's going to be taking that one down there. All right, let's actually bring up the Webull scanner here just because I want to see what's going on with the market in terms of which stocks are down the biggest. So we'll just get that percentage change. Okay, so we have some defensives that are up. Target actually up 10%, must have had good earnings. Baidu up 7.41. On the negative side, we've got quite a few stocks here. Financials, Visa down 3.57, interesting. Semiconductors, as we suspect, semiconductors usually getting, kind of constrained here. So it's an interesting day. It's a sell-off for sure. The question is there more to come after today's session? So let's have a look here at the 4-hour. First, I want to ask everybody, AMD down 8%. Well, AMD, I'd probably do some checking. I know AMD are in front, but Intel are back in the game on the old processor chips, I believe. So just remember, it's been a while since that's happened. So make sure you stay up. When you own AMD, I always caution people to understand exactly where Intel's at and exactly where Nvidia's at. And in terms of new architecture, the market is not very good at recognizing whether the architecture is good or not. So like to give you an example, back in the day when AMD first brought out the new Ryzen chips, so the ones that are on the current system, it's not like the stock went crazy. So what I mean is the stock wasn't going like wild. It wasn't going up as much as people would think. And then, of course, the earnings came out. It's where you can do social arb or gain an X factor. So remember, if you ever think you can gain an X factor, let's say the truth is like, things like TikTok, still to agree Google search, but specifically TikTok because the market isn't currently using that. Google search, though they do use this, customer reviews, all these types of things. When you've got some type of product, if you can figure that out or competitive advantage, these types of things, you get them, you find that there is some craze on it, the market will not be allocating to that craze. Now, you'll be able to tell if it is because the price action will be very bullish. So then possibly you can get into those stocks based on TA and based on your knowledge of your social arb, as they call it. Now, social arb is a time-consuming kind of process, but sometimes it can pay off a lot when you get it correct. Juicing Factor says Tom's Hardware, Intel's Alder Lake chips take the gaming crown for AMD and also rival or beat AMD in all meaning performance metrics like single and multi-threaded productivity workloads. Yeah, so then the question becomes whether it's going to continue up. Anyway, we'll get off that, but I definitely would suggest go to Amazon, check the top CPU sales. It used to be at one point there, I think AMD was like 80% plus of all the chip sales. Yeah, you want to look at their enterprise chips as well, their business ones. All right, we've got a question here from Moot Talk. Says, what are you buying today? Am I buying anything today? No, not really. I mean, I'm hoping to get a little bit lower here in terms of purchasing. But then the next question says, what do you think will do well for 3 months? Well, I'm still pretty bullish on solar, guys. I mean, solar and cybersecurity, they seem to be beaten down. They tend to do pretty well. And I've seen something come out of TAN. Oops, that's my private stuff. I've seen something come out of TAN. And let's just bring up TAN here for a second. This is a pretty significant base. We've got a significant base and we have a significant breach. And I think that probably continues. Now, it's based on obviously a few things. The UN report obviously helps. But I think when you're looking at it and you're looking at the current situation in the markets, which is, a decline in the 10-year and the 2-year. I mean, look at these things. They're down 5.42%, 7.59%. You might say, but Tom, doesn't this mean that the economy's good and everything's going to be good because the rates are dropping? And well, it's basically telling you inflation is disappearing, which is going to help the Fed because they haven't done anything yet. But at the same time, this market's sick. It's actually sick. You can tell it's sick because things aren't growing necessarily as well as they should. So this is having a direct reflect on the hyper stocks, but in particular, because ask yourself the question. I mean, if you have like a reduction in interest rates, yes, these weren't earning any money, so that's a big point of it, but it still does help these companies. So I think yeah, we're going to continue to see solar and clean energy and those types of things. They're going to speed up, and I think a lot of it's due to the stuff in the Ukraine, like the invasion in the Ukraine. It seems to have solidified quite a few businesses into, quite a few countries into certainly spending on random things. Like, obviously Germany's opened up its defense budget, but I would say in that defense budget, they're now all, because effectively you're seeing NATO solidify, you're also probably seeing the West generally solidify, which means they're starting to say, okay, we need to move ahead with operation, introduce more solar, introduce more wind. Whether you agree with it or not, obviously it's an investment principle. Look, the big problem is going to be smelting. You want to go and look, if you want to go and look at the minerals that are going to do well, the clear case is going to be what is required for this transition. And in most cases, it's like smelting the rubbish out of several minerals. And if you think about that, what's going to happen to those minerals, especially with the invasion stuff? If one of those minerals supply is coming out of Russia or the Ukraine, then all of a sudden you're going to see an uptick in demand there. Look at this US oil. It's 104. I'm not in this trade from the traditional stance of I've got energy stocks, but I don't have oil. And it's up 8.7%. Now, that's a huge amount, okay? That's putting huge pressure on the markets as well. It's a pretty wild trade, this constraint trade here. Now, I still think that at any point you could really get wiped here. And I think it gets more and more risky as the higher you go with oil. And I'm not saying that that's personally a trade that I like that much. The energy trade's fine. But yeah, think about outside the box. If you move into this clean stuff, what do you have to use to get there? What actual non-clean materials are going to need to be just, ridiculously used? And it can create a long-term constraint for you. Hoz8528 says degrowth will have to be a thing. Look, I think everybody needs to realize one thing. The world is shrinking from some perspective in terms of the Western economies anyway, or a lot of the Western economies. The biggest threat that actually is going to face the markets in the future. Well, what do you think some of the biggest threats are going to be AI, and they're going to be population decrease. Okay. because population decrease will have an effect purely on growth. So what will happen is that at some point we're going to see a monster crash, okay? And that monster crash is not going to come out the back end with inevitably greater growth forever. Population is going to be a big point. And AI also is a huge threat to the markets. You can invest in it and do well for now, but it will be a huge threat. Now, you may disagree with me, but those two things I can't really trade around it, but you always think about. All right, let's now take a look here at the close in terms of these markets. So I think they're currently weakening. You noticed I put down probably a support before for the NASDAQ. The S&P 500 kind of makes sense to try to get down to this 42.62. So let's have a look at the close here. We're moving into the last 13 minutes, and we're basically moving lower. Now, if we breach through this zone down here, what's pretty much going to go on? Well, the next level you would think is highly likely to get towards that 42.63. And 42.63 is the last level of support. Now, it's just the logical conclusion. And when we compare that with something like the NAS, which obviously over here, if we're thinking about the NAS and we go down that 15 minutes, it's already on its way. And the next stop for it is a little bit lower. So the next stop for it actually is sitting around this 13.777 from a huge, bigger support level. And that was kind of like my target for the day today. When I was looking at it, it kind of stuffed around for quite some time. So let's actually have a look here at the price action on both these markets. So you'll see the S&P 500, it was like rejecting. So it went bullish, and then it sat there and it like rejected. And there's a lot of stop loss hunting here. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were shorted with SLs here and just gotten beaten up. And over here on the NAS, it was like a rejection, a long leg doji, another long leg doji, and then it kept going higher. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if scalpers trades got hit. Did anyone get hit up here by stop losses, like stop loss hits? Scalpers could have got mauled. I think the key to all of today's trade was waiting for, when you start seeing all of this, unfortunately, you got to be super patient. And it's so boring. When you're at least in the market, you're kind of like, yes, at least I'm in. And then you start getting excited, or at least start yelling at the screen. If you're ever yelling at the screen, it's a bad thing. I did see someone before yelling at the screen, I think, in the Discord community. By the way, click the link in the description if you want to join the public Discord community. Some good discussion in there all the time. Always give those guys a shout out, including the private community. Some great information in all those. So I think probably the trade was trying to get underneath this zone. And I feel like you may have triggered probably on this candle, okay? But it would have been better to trigger on this candle for a scalp and have a stop loss here than all of this nightmare that was going on. So yeah, the market's weakening into the close. It's pretty obvious that they're having a go at trying to get it to this next level of support. We'll see whether it ends up getting down there. Let's now have a look at the sectors. Patience for what? Oh, so your patience for your breach underneath. You're basically looking for, if you see some type of full rejection coming in, where it's like rejection, and it looks like it's going to continue on, but it hasn't yet. So it hasn't made a new low like it did over here. Probably easier actually on the S&P 500 in terms of the short. Then you've just got to be patient and wait for that movement through. And when that comes, then you can put your stop loss in. You know what's really disturbing? And I think this is probably something that Edwin says here. Wow, 13,900 NQ. So that doesn't surprise me. But what does surprise me is what the hell is the VIX telling us about this market? Up 16.52%. That is incredibly high. And we look at this market, VIX 16.5%. We're not even back to where we were. Let's look at this VIX. It's only 2 points off, $2 or whatever you want to call it, off the all-time highs that we saw recently, and we're nowhere near that yet. So the market is actually, the VIX is showing us that there is a freak out in this market that's actually higher than it should be for the period of time that it's there. It's kind of crazy. The VIX is really wild at the moment, and it stayed consistently high for a few days here. That was another warning sign. It went up while the market stayed up. Netstar says the VIX is acting strange. It's staying up. Yeah, it's telling us bad things. Gary saying, he says VIX is swelling. Absolutely. Pradeep C19, Singapore, $5. Market got sick of buy the dip voices. This is it's a big attack on retail. I totally agree with you. It's a big attack on retail. So you can tell because the stock, well, actually Tesla's held very well. I mean, one of my trades of the day that I was talking about in terms of charts was pretty much, the long or the short of Tesla here, and what was going to happen through that. And of course, I did caution against the false breaks. The unfortunate thing here is, next trade day, obviously Tesla's holding way too well, considering the next trade day is going to be a lot to do with the short. Thank you very much for the support there, Pradeep. We've also got a comment coming in here from Gary Saini. He says he's become a member for 2 months. Thank you very much. Sometimes I miss these alerts. I don't know why this software does that. And one of the mods sent it through though, so don't worry. And Gary says, spoke with Alan on moving averages earlier, the member in the community. He said, don't mix SMA and EMA because it's comparing apples to bananas. Thoughts? Well, I use an SMA for the 200 because it's so old. As in, it's been around 200 periods is how far back it is. Look, basically an EMA and an SMA, they're just two slightly different calcs. They're just slightly different. An EMA obviously puts more weight on the recent price, so the more recent periods. An SMA is smoothed across the whole thing, so it makes sense. Look at 20, let's say a 20 SMA versus EMA, they're going to be different. But in general, I like the EMA because I want a little bit of more speed that's relevant to the current market conditions. Okay, that's really important. The current market conditions. All right, let's bring up this sector analysis in terms of what they're actually hitting today in the markets. Let's have a look here. Market recovered a little bit there. It's a little bit of a buy up here in the last 5 minutes. I'm not sure if I'd be concerned about that if I was in the market. So Jets, unfortunately, here copping it the worst today. Semiconductors down really hard. It does make sense, this market. Unfortunately, when you think about it, the recovery play can't really be on at the moment because of what's going on in the world. The Jets is a direct reflection on the recovery play. That is tourism. And if Jets is going well, I don't know why this is not working anymore. 1 second. If Jets is going well, then what it's telling you is maybe, or not even maybe, it's pretty much time to get on the recovery trade. Now, Jets hit our resistance trend line and it went past the first. But what is happening here is we've now got a huge sell-off that's due to the invasion principles. That obviously what's happened here is that. So let me just quickly click on the 1 day again. There we go. Invasion's really hurting that. It's hurting semiconductors. Financials surprisingly down. It's probably just that's because of the interest rates. It's actually not surprising. And then we've got XLK, XLY. All the standards are in there. Gold's up 3.93%. XME's up 2.17%. And and then we've got tan. So look, minerals, incredibly interesting trade right now. It could go into a hyper boom as well, as I mentioned. If you find the smelting minerals or materials, you find those rare kind of things that are going to be required as well, just all sorts of stuff. Like they're the types of trades that you really want to be in on. So let's go to this US 100 because it's pulling back up here to the 14K near the close. Let's have a look at the last 15-minute trade. Okay, so it's bounced a little bit here. Probably at a point where you hope sellers come back in if you are a seller. Previous supports, you hope that acts as resistance. We'll see how it goes. We've got 3 minutes into the close here. Copper, nickel, yeah, well, copper's certainly up here. You've got that sitting at 1.47%. Copper often is an interesting indicator. Copper beating out, actually losing to gold here today, though. So gold sitting at 1943. It's really been a risk off kind of day with huge moves through things like the oil trade, like the minerals, like the the gold, all of these kind of, probably the wheat is up quite a lot as too. Edwin says here, plus tomorrow our friend Jerome Powell at the Fed is going to speak at 10 a.m. adding to the fun. Yeah, so I think maybe the market is preempting kind of a little bit of that. Maybe I'm not really too sure what the direction they want for Jerome. At this stage, though, that the price action is still saying lower highs. So I think I'd watch that lower highs, okay? And this should be theoretically where the market tries to short back off again. So we've got 2 minutes till the close. Thank you very much for joining us. 1,000 people that are out there, appreciate it. If you're enjoying the discussions, enjoying the stream, that's good. I'm not really going heavily into analysis here on this market. I guess we probably should, but realistically, if you're not short in the market, this is a zone of interest. You've obviously got Jerome coming out. Where you're going to be able to tell, okay, this market's in really bad condition, is going to be underneath this 13.7. Okay, so we breach underneath 13.7, blur, really bad. Okay, really bad. Then you can get some shorts on heaps of things. Green Thought says, Tom, a lot of buying into the close. Well, there's buying into the close, 0.5% of buying. But look, we've looked at it right here. Let's have a look at some of the donations coming in. 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, grab that. Gary Sony, $10. Thank you very much, Gary Sony. Says, I used the 100, 200 SMA, okay, and the 2050 EMA. He told me not to do that because he and I differed on 20 to 200 Death Cross. Death Cross is pointless, which I thought was 50, 200. Yeah. And we want all 50 EMAs. We want all EMAs. Should we use 200, 20, or 50 EMA versus... Look, I used the 20 EMA, the 50 EMA, the 200 SMA, and the 100 is also very good. Okay, so they're buying up a bit more than I thought at the end here. Yeah, look, I think that you can use whatever you want, but there's nothing wrong with that. Don't worry about Death Cross stuff. It's just crap. Okay. Yes, I might even mention it. But really, there are certain indicators that make sense and work, and certain, like the Death Cross is such a slow indicator. It doesn't usually mean that much. Thank you very much, Gary. Emma K, $20. Thank you very much, Emma. Appreciate that. And definitely give Emma a couple of claps here. Thank you very much. Thanks for everything, Tom. No worries. Watching you, I've learned a ton and made some good money. Well, that's excellent. I'm glad you have. Hopefully you're doing it in a risk management way that's also really good. That would be fantastic. So I appreciate that, Emma, and I'm glad that you've been doing well. Cameron Chevalier says, yesterday the market was bullish on nuclear war. Today, apparently not. No. Well, the market in death run, in terms of if the market is weakening and not liking what's going on, then it's going to, all good bear markets or all good sell-off markets have incredible rallies and incredible shorts, okay? They have very big pickups to suck people in and then have very big shorts. Sometimes you can find certain indicators that will tell you that the market is still weak even while it's rallying. And I think if you can find those, they'll definitely help you out. If you can then understand that you've got to be nimble and you've got to be fast with most of your investments. And I've said this consistently, get rid of swing trading during high periods of VIX 20 plus, because most of you are going to be bullish markets. And there's nothing wrong with being traditionally bullish markets. But everybody tries to buy everything and then hold it for full recovery. If you're doing a buy of a stock, you're doing it for your longer holding portfolio. That may be 3 months, that may be 6 months, that may be multiple years. And usually it's a DCA, some type of dollar cost strategy. And remember, the difference between a trader and an investor: entry, stop loss, take profit for a trader. And for a investor, it's entry and then usually time frame. Back to 14,000 here on the NAS, but it's moving back down again after hours. So it closed okay, closed a bit stronger than you would think, but yeah, then it went straight back down. It's going back down again after hours a little bit. Darren Jones, $10. Tom, please show put wall for SPY. Sure, I'll bring that up for you. I can also have to grab it. Not much options in this week in comparison to others. So we still got a lot of calls sitting on that 460, which are set. So there's actually more calls. If you want to call it a put wall, which I wouldn't, probably 420. 420 SPY. I'd caution you against using these at the moment, because we're in a market where it will pay off downside risk as well. Okay. It's not a market where you're just going to hit things and then that suddenly will be a bounce. There are certain times to use it and certain times not. And your VIX is above 30. So consider that all bets are off, Darren. All bets are off at this stage. But there you go. 420 technically is where the main one's at. 420, 425, it looks like. And if you want to check it as well, you can go over and have a look at Yahoo options. But that's it. Right around there. So the market closed here and it rallied a little bit into the end of the day. It got above 14,000 or around 14,000. We've created a long leg doji on the 1 hour. So it'll be interesting to see how the futures market trades after this. So a little bit of bullishness there into the close. I still expect this to be an interesting zone. Obviously down here, you could see buyers come fully back into these markets. But yeah, that's how it closed. Let's now have a look at the SPX on the real market rather than just the futures. So SPX went to a new low and then rebounded off that, ended up creating a bullish hammer, which is interesting. So I think it just really awaits Jerome now is the discussion that the market's probably having with itself. I still thought it would go a little lower, maybe down to the 42, whatever it was I had before. But, you know, the futures will do what the futures will do. And you can see that last kind of bit of buying. Interesting. And it was Wall Street sitting there. Taibu says, the risk now is what Putin would do as Ukraine accelerating into EU joining process. I have no idea how that'll play out. I mean, probably leave my comment alone, but I have a feeling, I'm not even too sure if Putin can pull back, to be honest. I think he's put himself in a really big problem. I don't see how he can get out of this. It's not like he can just leave. I don't know what's going to happen to him becomes the question. So it's pretty weird. Ride or die says anything ARK touches should make you run. Yeah, isn't that crazy how ARK's down? Let's have a look here at ARK K. So this was actually one of my leads here that I was thinking, oh, okay, ARC's probably going to be down because it hits the 20 moving average here. And that has been a pretty consistent weakness plus our trend line towards the downside. And yeah, ARC's just consistently getting belted here. I mean, I think some of the stocks, I still don't understand some of the stocks. I must say, I just don't get it. Maybe I'll be completely proven wrong, but yeah. I think you can pretty much pick. What I would do is if I was thinking about buying hyper stocks, maybe one of the best things to do is to actually look at the last earnings report. Remember, a lot of these hyper stocks are down still. And actually say, okay, which companies continued to accelerate? Because they're all down. This market doesn't care which hyper stock it is. They're all down. So the last earnings, which markets are actually continuing to accelerate and execute their plan towards profitability and earnings, even though they're down? And if you ask yourself that question, then you've probably found, your stocks that will outperform. Okay, we'll look at the crypto markets just a minute, but let's talk about these big metal markets and stuff. So gold is really smashing it here. 1947. It's gone back up. So my idea on gold was don't touch the damn thing until it breaks through 1922. I guess that did happen over here. Went to 1925. It's a good little buy. The good thing is that it has those series of higher lows. So that's good. Now, gold actually will benefit from a dropping yield. So if that's possible, like gold should actually benefit from that over the longer term. So yeah, it's looking okay. It's currently up. Obviously, these trades are going to be wild depending on what's happening on the news, and that you've got to realize that gold and oil, especially oil, is going to be incredibly susceptible to news trade alerts. So make sure you have your safety in there. And yeah, it's currently looking towards, it's in the middle of limbo land. So 1960 becomes the next target. And if it can breach that, consolidate somewhere here, then we go towards, potential all-time highs on gold trade. What will the SPX do tomorrow? It's the $1 million question, isn't it? I probably wouldn't mind seeing some futures action. It's hard because the Fed is coming out. So remember, the big bit of news here is going to be the Fed. You got two long leg dojis or two kind of indecisions here at the close. You're buying into the close, showing that the market was prepared to take some risk at the end in certain stocks. Yeah, maybe we'll have to wait till the 10 a.m. news to get clarification. But remember, the S&P, at least on the futures market, this is a very clean support. 42.63, pretty clean. So we go down and we breach that. Well, you've got to think the market's going towards that short trade. Thank you very much, Andrew Crisp. Gary Sony says Wall Street bought the yesterday as well, and they got the markets again today. Yeah, it's true. They did buy up yesterday. All right, let's go have a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's sitting around the 44,000, still a problem level for it. I've said this a few times. I don't really think the Bitcoin trade is fully on until it can complete getting through this zone here, this red box. The reason why is because while it's got some strong principles down here, and obviously this trade to this was pretty good, we do have issues, and we've got issues in the market itself. So if we have issues in the stock market, and at the same time we've got a potential double bottom here on the crypto markets, this problem is real. Because is this move real, or is this just like a shock reaction to the ruble and the Russian stuff that's going on, the mass inflows into the crypto market that we've seen? Well, I think also we could be looking towards, further if we get through, we're going towards like a 52,000 for Bitcoin. So that will be a huge move. And of course, a big double bottom like this starts, another rally, you would think, in terms of more people are going to be confident in it and start to move back into crypto. So it's at a really important zone. We've seen some movement into other cryptos. I said yesterday that Ethereum was probably going to do better than Bitcoin just to play catch up. It currently is, but it's not quite at that 3,200. So you can tell the market is still freaking out in the crypto world. Bitcoin's up, but it hasn't stabilized at this price long enough to allow all the alts to go up as much. By the way, do we have the announcement on SoFi? Did that come out? It did come out 12%, or 7%, $12. Yeah, I had a suspicion that would. I mentioned it yesterday. It's just another one of these stocks that's beaten down at the moment where the market tends to be more positive towards those earnings because it's just beaten down. Like the earnings are tending to be pretty good on hypers. It's going pretty well in aftermarket, 8.66% now. Not sure if anything is out. Okay. Well, just tell us if someone has a report for it. But interesting movement here in the after hours. Market continuing to actually bull here in the after hours as well. JWN being short squeezed. Let's have a look. Nordstrom. Up 33% after hours. Earnings report. Pretty big move. 26. It's crazy. Actually, I mean, that's putting in a base that's that's actually just breaching resistance. That's at the next resistance over here. Not sure if it can hold it, but yeah, well. Because of course this is the bottom, the support, and then you would hope to see it slowly move up, potentially scale in, and then if it breaches through, it's got good principles, but I don't know if it can hold that price. But I wouldn't know what the earnings was. The market continues to go back up here. Yeah, it's crazy right now. You got a VIX at 33 and the market's liking it. Bizarre. SoFi is flying. Yeah. Good. Geez, it was low. $8. To this point here, that's a 36.95% turnaround. That's a crypto style turnaround. That's just how far down some of these stocks got. So if you had conviction, you were buying the other day. Yeah, these hypers, Square, etc. Square as well. I mean, look at Square's percentage here. 55%. Andrew Wright, $1. Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate that. Again, the news today is pretty much around the yields. US 2-year down pretty hard. US 10-year down pretty hard. Actually breaching new lows. Materials up really hard. US oil, obviously 105.20, just to show you. Woo! That's crazy. 105. Well, oil is beating out most of my positions now. I might have been incredibly bullish oil for some time, but this last bit smells of a blow off to me. I think what's going to happen is going to go wee a bit. Nick Calhor, $1.99. Tom, can you have a look at the lightning bolt on GNRC? Love you. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, we can have a look at that. Okay, so it's got nice buy day a few days ago. Strong kind of base. Not sure if I'd call it a lightning bolt, but certainly you're looking at the base kind of formation here. Interesting volume coming off earnings. So this is a case where the earnings actually pushed the market up, which is a good sign because obviously, the rest of the market pulled it down. So it wasn't, the market initially reacted. You've got to ask yourself the question. The market initially reacted positive towards it, and then the bearish pressures of the markets brought it down. So it's just back to that little bit of resistance over here. Look, it's got positive signs towards recovery. Let's have a look at the weekly. Okay. Little rejection here, and it's breached above that. That's good. Next stop for this one's 391, you would think. It's going to have some problems at 354. 4 hour. The one thing I'm noticing, I don't mind this. But basically, you're consolidating before breaching through. So you've got nice consolidation here at the resistance. That's usually a good sign. So you like that. And then, of course, if it breaches through, it's just a bit stronger because it's thought about this process before going through. Blow off top on oil? Maybe eventually. I would not bet against it. I'm just neutral on it. I mean, I know it's going well, but it won't. Look, there's a personal preference sometimes you're going to make in trading. And that is, what type of risk are you prepared to take? Like someone said, you should have shorted rubles. Yeah, I could have shorted rubles, as could many of you out there. And it probably was a logical decision. The problem is they can freeze you. So you could get frozen in terms of the funds. And also, because you're trading a news-based trade, what ends up happening is it becomes illiquid. So you get a lot of gapping and a lot of slippage on your trade. So there are risks to trading risky, kind of markets that are in huge moves. Big blow-offs, big kind of moves. They're not really stop-loss related trades where you can have good stop losses. Like here, I could see the oil market doing another thing like this where it goes bang, 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 like that kind of thing. So you've just got to be really, really careful. That's all. It's just a type of trade. It's different. How high can oil go? I'm thinking about dollar cost averaging short soon. Oil could go to 150, man. JR Hickson bought, but it did just go past my next target, which was going to be 103. JR Hickson bought $2. Will silver hit a golden cross before a pullback? So silver's sitting at 4.12. Again, don't worry about the crosses so much. Moving average crosses this is that he's talking about. And think more about the price action. So you've seen a base. You've obviously got a resistance here that's a huge deal. And if you can close above that resistance, which it's trying to do right now, then what you're doing is you're putting in the next level. And the next level could be quite a lot higher here for silver. So the silver next level, historically, it's kind of stopped around here. And then after that, it's actually had fairly smooth sailing up to 28.30. So silver's done nothing since, what time is this? This was August of 2020. It's been a horrible investment since then. But it looks like silver and gold, especially if the 10-year and the 2-year continue down, they could be coming into that 28.30 kind of zone relatively quickly. There's a lot of free movement here. It's a big deal next 24 hours in silver. That's the way I'd probably be looking at it. Kevin N says the whole market is news-based now. Correct. Why you got to be fast and nimble. And it could massively gap up on a peace deal. Yeah, it'll move. The back is going to be the big deal. So the back end is going to be the biggest thing. And what I mean by that is the yield, the Fed. That's actually the real problem with the market at the moment. It's not just this invasion stuff, it's also a huge thing to do with the current market conditions that are being caused. I want to have a look at Nvidia here, down 3.72%. So this is still one of my favorite shorts in the market. And that's just, which is hard to short this kind of stock because obviously it's a semi. Like, how can you short a semi, Tom? The only reason is really just the amount of shorts on it and obviously retail kind of all over this stock. So it broke underneath this level here. To me, that's a little bit bearish. And if the market continues to fall, I think this one could easily get back down to 210. So it's still worth looking at. If you go into the 15-minute, you'll notice here you've got that rejection coming off here late and a bit of a rally, but looks kind of like a little miniature head and shoulders, yeah? With an actual breach this time. Mark Wilkins says, Tom, you know about iron ore? I do. Any idea why Vale chart completely different than BHP and Rio? Vale is got some kind of production concerns issue, doesn't it? I know Rio, and obviously I know FMG, Rio, and BHP incredibly well. And they've all been really great trades. I mean, recently, Vale actually has been the better trade because when you think about it, this is a 49.52% increase since I've been very bullish on iron ore in the markets. 49.52%. So Vale got completely flogged. It's not been doing too well. And then if you think about BHP, which is, I'll use the Australian code for it, it's done really well as well. And it had an amazing base. I mean, what a base. But even from the bottom, if you got, from the breakout, which is again the 1st of December, this to top to bottom was 27%. So Vale actually has been the better trade. So a lot of people are saying, well, what's going on with Vale? But you're just looking at it from where it was before and where it is now. What the better thing to do is just to say, okay, well, Vale has been the better trade, but they're all moving up in pretty close to each other. Keep looking at iron ore spot and watching the trend there. If you're trading iron ore, make sure you look at iron ore spot. And if you ever hear of issues with a mine, like a Rio mine, a BHP, or a Vale mine, then you can usually buy up the other ones and get a bit of an arb there, kind of moving on. Travis, $5 just to thank you. You do great work. No worries, Travis. Appreciate that, man. Everyone's asking me what's going to happen with the SPX tomorrow. I mean, I'll put a video out later talking about it. I haven't made a conclusion yet. I need to look at a few extra things. I need to look at my indicators a little bit here and come up with some conclusion. But I think the big problem I've got is that the old Papa Jerome's coming out at 10 a.m. He's going to make a big issue here for the markets. So to reiterate kind of the strength and weaknesses of the day, look, crypto is still looking strong. Obviously, the longer Bitcoin holds here, the more chance the Ethereum trade has of coming through and moving towards the 3,200. So it's pretty much crypto holds, Ethereum moves towards 3,200. That would be the general game plan. If the market for crypto, let's say Bitcoin's able to get through 46, 50 becomes a very big area, 52 actually. The market itself is weak today, however, not seriously weak. We saw it down 2% and actually got bought up 0.7% near the close. So got back above 14K on the NAS, back above 4,300 on the US 500. It's a fairly big deal. It's really just awaiting Jerome, I think. So it's going to float around here. Maybe there's some weakness in the futures market. That's possible. Large caps seem to be getting slammed the most, 1.48% down the Dow. Obviously, IWM weakening as well to back underneath the 200. So what this is telling us is the market's just awaiting the news. And the other big story is that we're continuing to see big plays on the Russia trade. So basically, this invasion continues to have big shock waves. And I think the shock waves also in the mineral market. Remember, think of it as green transformation. This is a good little way of trade. Green transformation. And then on top of that, if we have things that are used heavily for smelting, and if you have some of the world's supply coming from countries like this, it could really help you to think about that longer term opportunity for the buy side. So look, we'll leave you there today in terms of what we're going through. I'll make a video a little bit later. I'm going to have to go have a look at these markets and figure out whether I can find any kind of edge. I had a feeling there might be a risk off here a little bit. There was. It's not that strong. I was hoping for it to at least get down to this point here. And that is a level I'd be looking at closely tomorrow. Like you see sell off because Jerome scares the market. Huge deal if it gets underneath there, or at least a decent deal. Andrew Chris says, so if only Jerome knows, then stay out. Well, you're just really doing it by hour style trade here. I mean, if you'd taken shorts off today's trade and you'd gotten into the 15-minute chart and you were watching this 15-minute rejection, then there was probably a fair trade towards the short side here for the day. And you would have probably held it to the close. That is the type of trading that you should be doing right now. Looking for these signs. Market opens, rejects a bunch, follow through, short. Maybe you take it off there. That's all you've got. But in general, that's what I was looking for today. Some kind of shorty rejection. And it did happen around the open. Jose here, or Jose, $5. Thank you for the great advice. I always get your name wrong, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it as usual. All right. We will see you tomorrow. I will be doing a video a little bit later. And for anyone that's in the private community, make sure to jump on over to our video that we're going to be doing here for the close, just talking about some other stuff as well. So I'll see you very soon for some, and I'll see everybody else in the video. And thank you so much for being part of the community. Smash that like button if you can, and we'll move on to the next one. Things are a bit unclear here because, but the markets just aren't trading as clearly as you would hoped. All right, catch you for now. Bye.